Welcome back to the High Noon Training Academy. Today we continue with the second in our series on reloading 38 special, sizing and depriming, and then priming the brass. This will be a shorter video since this process in some cases can be done in a single step. Although in my case, I'm going to size and then deprime the cases first and then prime them in the second step. The reason for this is because I own this Lyman All-American turret press you see here, and I'm not in love with this priming mechanism. Other than that, I think it's a great press. I'm actually going to do a review on it soon, so look out for that to be posted in the near future. But a couple of things I didn't like about the primer. You may ask, why don't you like it? Well, the blast tube here is functional, but it's opaque. So if you inadvertently load any primers upside down and don't catch it before you actually try to load, you can actually load primers upside down. You can get jams in here. This mechanism right here, you're actually bringing the case down on top of the primer and kind of jamming the case on the primer. I found that for me, I went out and got one of these RCBS Universal Hand Priming tools, and first of all, you can see all the primers through this little glass door, so you can make sure all your primers are going to be straight up and you won't have any upside down or sideways primers. Secondly, the spring-loaded clamp that holds the base of the shell here is nice and firm, holds your shells nice and taut, so that when you squeeze the handle and raise the primer into the case, you feel, or at least I felt like I had a lot more control. So nothing against the Lyman, but after I started using that guy, I never went back. So as such, I have a two-step process for sizing and depriming and then priming. You may have a one-step process. So you say tomato, I say tomato. Let's get on with the show. Before we actually get to working with the brass, one thing to mention for those who may be new to reloading: what is this sizing of the brass and why do we need to do it in the first place? Well, to better explain, let's take a look at the parts that make up a completed cartridge. As we can see, a completed cartridge consists of the bullet, the case, the powder charge, and the primer. As you can see in this short clip, as the hammer strikes the primer and ignites the powder, the subsequent explosion expels the bullet out of the case. During that process, the sides of the cases are expanded and fill the walls of the barrel of your weapon, in this case our 38 Special. The process of sizing the brass is the process by which we attempt to return the case back to its original size. How do we know what the original size is supposed to be? Well, there's an industry standard called SAAMI specifications. It lists the dimensions for each caliber and each round. And when you buy a set of dies, in this case we'll be using the Lee 38 Special set, it will be manufactured to resize your cases back to the SAAMI spec, or at least something close enough that your round will chamber as long as you've installed your dies correctly. And we will be going over the correct process for installing your dies in a minute. So, now that you understand why we size brass in the first place, let's get on with it. Welcome back, folks. I've moved the cameras around so that you can see the press up close so that we can get a good view of this sizing and decapping process. This is the Lyman All-American turret press. I will be doing a review on that shortly. Other than that, what we'll be using today are the Lee factory carbide sizing die. This is a 38 Special carbide die set. This was a 3 die set. It does come with a 4 die set. It does come with a shell holder. For today's work, what we will be using specifically is the sizing and decapping die. Say hi, Sasha. My dog in the background. Sizing and decapping die that we'll be using. As you can see, the pin of the decapping die is set about 1/4 of an inch, maybe the depth of 2/4. In order to install the die, follow the manufacturer's instructions. In this case, Lee says to screw the die, raise your ram with the shell holder. I did install the shell holder. Raise the ram with the shell holder in it. Lower it down until the die touches. As you can see right there, the die is now touching the ram. Tighten it up. to try to readjust the camera here so that you can see the. No, you don't need to see the dog. You need to see. Sorry about this. There you go. If you can see the ram. There we go. Okay, sorry about that. So now you can see the whole process. That's the full stroke. So what we would do is take one of our 38 special cases, insert it into the shell holder. For the first few times to make sure that you've got everything lined up correctly, you can kind of guide it in with your hand. Then once you get it in here, all the way down to the bottom of the stroke, back up to the top of the stroke, and what do you see? Bing bam. All the primer has been knocked out. In this case, the primer is going to a little tray that catches them, and honestly, that is about all there is to the process. So I'm going to knock out the rest of these primers really quickly. We'll probably fast forward through this footage, and we'll be back as soon as we're done. Alright, last but not least, that was our last case. Now looking at these cases, in some cases you may want to clean out the primer pocket and before you actually load a new primer in, because this is once fired brass that I personally bought and fired only once in a .38 revolver that never hit the ground. And looking at these, inspecting these primer pockets, they look pretty clean. I'm not going to do any additional primer pocket cleaning, but just to know that there is a step when we reload rifle ammo 5.56 or maybe 300 blackout, you'll get to see that step. But because these primer pockets look pretty good, we are going to move right on to priming these cases. And so I will be right back as soon as I grab the hand primer, and we'll show you that process. Okay folks, now that we've gotten the brass old sized and deprimed, it's time to prime the cases. And here's where we'll be using that universal hand priming tool from RCBS I talked about. You gotta make sure you open the door first so the primer actually slips in there. Squeeze the handle, nice and firm. Open it up, and what do you have? You now have a perfectly primed case. We'll run through the rest of these, and we'll be back in shortly. To be honest, fam, there isn't much to show of this process either. As you can see, it's rather repetitive, and I won't bore you with the details. The next video in our series will cover adding powder to our cases, seating and crimping our bullets. Once again, we'll be using the Lyman turret press to accomplish all three of these steps simultaneously. I hope that you found this video informative and helpful, and if you did, please leave a like and subscribe. Hit the like and subscribe buttons below. Also, leave us a comment and let us know what tools you use for sizing and decrimping your brass. Again, we want to thank you for stopping by, and we'll see you again soon here at the High Noon Training Academy.